January 1943, coastal radio station KFS, Half Moon Bay, California. A civilian operator named Robert Strupe is sweeping the shortwave bands at 3 in the morning when something impossible cuts through the static. The signal is weak, hand-keyed in Morse, and it claims to be coming from the Philippines. The Philippines fell 8 months ago. Every American serviceman left alive in those islands is in a Japanese prison camp or buried in one. The operator copies the message word for word and runs it down the hall to a Navy intelligence officer who does not believe him. The message is 28 words long. It says, quote, "We have the hot dope on the hot Yanks in the hot Philippines." End quote. The signature reads, quote, "Mindanao." End quote. The Navy intelligence officer in San Francisco puts the message in a secure pouch and forwards it to General Douglas MacArthur in Brisbane, Australia. MacArthur's staff reads the message twice. They believe it is a Japanese trap. Tokyo Rose has been broadcasting fake American voices for months. The Japanese have known how to mimic American radio procedure since before Pearl Harbor. MacArthur tells his signals chief to send back one question only. The question goes out over the same frequency the next night. It asks for the name and home address of the Finser's firstborn child. If the answer comes back wrong, the channel will be shut down and treated as enemy traffic. If it comes back right, MacArthur will know that somewhere in Japanese-occupied Mindanao there is at least one American officer who is still in the war. The reply takes 96 hours to come back because the man sending it has to walk 3 days through the jungle to reach the only generator that powers his transmitter. The reply, in Morse, is 6 words long. Patricia, Golden, Colorado. That answer comes from a man MacArthur has never met. To understand how a 42-year-old American civil engineer ended up commanding the only organized resistance force on a Japanese-held island, the size of Indiana, we have to go back 19 years to a mining engineering classroom in Golden, Colorado, where the man sending that signal first learned the one principle that will keep him alive in the Mindanao jungle for the next 3 years. That principle was not military. It was geological, and it would build the largest American-led guerrilla army of the Second World War. His name is Wendell Wallace Fertig. He is born in La Junta, Colorado, on the 16th of December 1900. His father is a small-town businessman. The boy is quiet, methodical, and stubborn. He attends the University of Colorado at Boulder, and then transfers to the Colorado School of Mines in Golden, where the curriculum is built around one assumption. A mining engineer in the field cannot call for help. He has to solve the problem in front of him with what he has on hand. Fertig leaves the school in 1924, 1 semester short of his degree, and takes a commission as a second lieutenant in the Army Reserve. He never imagines he will need it. By 1936, he is working as a civilian mining engineer in the Philippines. He oversees road construction, demolition contracts, and dredging projects across Luzon and Mindanao. He learns the geography of the islands the way only an engineer learns terrain. He learns which mountain roads will hold a truck convoy in the wet season. He learns where the dynamite caches are stored. He learns the names of the Filipino municipal officials in towns the American military will never have a reason to visit. He is married, with a daughter named Patricia. He sends Patricia and his wife Mary back to Colorado in the summer of 1941. He stays. The Japanese invade the Philippines on the 8th of December, 1941. Fertig is recalled to active duty as a lieutenant colonel in the Army Corps of Engineers. He is assigned to General Jonathan Wainwright's command on Corregidor, then transferred to Mindanao to supervise the demolition of bridges, fuel dumps, and airstrips ahead of the advancing Japanese. He is on a demolition run in the interior when General William Sharp surrenders the Mindanao garrison on the 10th of May, 1942. Fertig hears the news on a borrowed radio in a cane field. He does not turn himself in. He does not march to a prison camp. He walks deeper into the jungle and starts thinking. The problem he is thinking about is rank. In the Philippines in 1942, a man with a Filipino accent and a Springfield rifle does not follow a stranger because the stranger says he is a lieutenant colonel. He follows the stranger because the stranger is a general. Fertig has no general officers within 1,200 miles. The closest American flag officer is MacArthur in Australia. The Japanese have placed a price of 10,000 pesos on the head of any American officer found alive. Fertig sits down in the home of a Filipino schoolteacher in Misamis Occidental Province and writes himself a promotion order. On the 18th of September 1942, on his own authority and no other, Wendell Fertig becomes a brigadier general. He calls his new command the United States Forces in the Philippines, USFIP. He drafts a proclamation in English and in Cebuano, the local language, and has it copied onto rice paper and distributed in market towns across the island. The proclamation says that the United States Army still exists on Mindanao. It says that an American general is in command. It does not say that the general appointed himself. Within 30 days, the first rival guerrilla bands begin reporting to him. Within 60 days, he has 3,200 armed men under arms. Within 6 months, his force will be the largest organized American military presence between Hawaii and Australia. The first weapons problem is bullets. Fertig has roughly 4,000 Springfield rifles by the end of 1942 and no resupply. His men begin cutting curtain rods and brass plumbing fittings to length, then crimping them into spent cartridge cases packed with extracted match-head powder. The improvised rounds will not fire accurately past 50 yards. They do not have to. The second problem is food. Fertig sets up rice procurement contracts with municipal governments that no longer technically exist. He pays in pesos printed by his own Treasury Department, which is also him. The currency holds because the people of Mindanao decide it will hold. By March 1943, Fertig is governing roughly 95% of an island larger than Ohio. The Japanese garrison on Mindanao is no smaller than 15,000 troops, and at peak strength reaches 18,000. They never hold the interior. They cannot. Every time a Japanese patrol leaves the coastal towns, it is shadowed by Fertig's men, who know every footpath and stream crossing on the island. The Japanese commanders make local truces. In several districts of Cotabato and Bukidnon provinces, the Japanese garrison commander signs a written agreement with the local USFIP officer that neither side will attack the other if the other stays in its assigned zone. This is the kind of war the United States Army has no doctrine for. It will need one. 6 years from now, the man writing the doctrine will be Wendell Fertig. What happens in the next 7 minutes is not in any standard history of the Pacific War. It is in a series of submarine deck logs, a stack of MacArthur Memorial Library files in Norfolk, Virginia, and one sanctioned biography written in 1963. If this is the kind of history you want more of, subscribe. We are just getting to it. On the 5th of March 1943, a U.S. Navy lieutenant commander named Charles Parsons arrives off the Mindanao coast in the submarine U.S. Tambor. Parsons is a former Manila businessman. He speaks Tagalog. MacArthur has sent him to find out who is actually running this guerrilla force and whether the self-appointed general is a fraud, a Japanese plant, or something the United States Army has never seen before. Parsons spends 3 weeks in the jungle with Fertig. He inspects the troops, the radio shacks, the field hospitals run by Filipino doctors with no medicine, and the makeshift coastal watch stations that are tracking Japanese shipping movements through the Sulu Sea. He files his report by submarine. The report tells MacArthur 3 things. Fertig is not a fraud. Fertig is running an effective, disciplined, multi-division force, and Fertig has been calling himself a brigadier general for 6 months. MacArthur reads the report at his Brisbane headquarters. He does 2 things. He officially designates Fertig commander of the 10th Military District, the entire central and southern Philippines, and he demotes him in writing back to colonel. The demotion stings. It also does not change the war. Fertig keeps signing his name as colonel and his men keep calling him general, and the United States Navy keeps sending submarines. The USS Narwhal, the USS Nautilus, the USS Stingray, the USS Hake. Between October 1943 and the liberation of Mindanao, American submarines deliver roughly 900 tons of weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, propaganda leaflets, and 1 full set of guerrilla uniforms to Fertig's ports. When the USS Narwhal surfaces off Tucuran in the summer of 1944, it is met on the beach by a uniformed Filipino brass band playing Stars and Stripes Forever. The Navy boarding party is not sure what to do. The sub-commander asks for instructions. There are no instructions for this. On the 17th of April 1945, the United States 8th Army under General Robert Eichelberger lands at Parang on western Mindanao. Within 10 days, the 24th and 31st Infantry Divisions are driving inland. Their flank guides are Fertig's men. The maps they are using were drawn by Fertig's engineers. The bridges they cross were destroyed by Fertig's demolition teams in 1942 and repaired by his sappers in 1944. The official 8th Army After Action report later acknowledges that the Mindanao campaign cost the 8th Army about 820 killed in action. Without the guerrilla preparation, Eichelberger believed it would have cost 10 times that. The war in the Pacific ends on the 2nd of September 1945. MacArthur signs the Japanese surrender aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. Fertig is not invited. He is not even officially demobilized for another 6 months. When he finally returns to Colorado in March 1946, he is wearing Colonel's Eagles on a uniform that is 2 sizes too large. He weighs 128 pounds. He has malaria. He has a wife and a daughter who have not seen him in 4.5 years. He has the Distinguished Service Cross, the Army Distinguished Service Medal, and a quiet expectation that he is finished with the United States Army. He is not. For the next 5 years he works as a civil engineer in Denver. He builds dams. He surveys mining claims. He gives the occasional lecture at the Colorado School of Mines on the practical realities of running engineering operations in a hostile environment. He does not talk publicly about Mindanao. He turns down 2 requests from Hollywood to license his story. Then, in June 1951, a registered letter arrives from the Department of the Army. The Korean War is in its 2nd year. The Pentagon has just authorized the creation of something called the Psychological Warfare Center at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The letter offers Colonel Fertig a 1-year assignment as Special Forces Plans Officer. The man drafting the curriculum is named Colonel Aaron Bank. The men who will graduate from it will eventually be called the Green Berets. Fertig reports to Fort Bragg in July 1951. He spends the next 11 months in a classroom and a planning office with Bank, with Colonel Russell Volkman, who ran a parallel guerrilla campaign in northern Luzon, and with a small group of officers from the Wartime Office of Strategic Services. The doctrine they write together becomes the founding charter of United States Army Special Forces. It draws directly, sometimes word for word, on what Fertig and Volkman learned in the Philippines between 1942 and 1945. How to recruit indigenous fighters, how to maintain a parallel civil administration in occupied territory, how to live off a supply line that runs by submarine, how to run a radio net that no occupying power can shut down. Today, the Field Manual for Unconventional Warfare FM 3-05-130 still cites the Philippine guerrilla campaign as the founding case study. Most of the case study is Fertig. Fertig leaves the army for the second and final time in June 1952. He goes home to Colorado and returns to civil engineering. In 1963, the Hollywood film he had turned down twice is finally made. The book it is based on is called They Fought Alone. The film is never made, but the book sells respectably. MacArthur dies in April 1964. 2 days later, a reporter from the Denver Post calls Fertig at home and asks for a comment on the general who had once demoted him. The reporter quotes Fertig's full reply in the next morning's edition. Quote, "He was the right man at the right time. The 10th Military District was honored to serve under him." End quote. That is the only public comment Fertig ever makes about Douglas MacArthur. So, Colonel Wendell Wallace Fertig died on the 24th of March, 1975, at his home outside Boulder, Colorado. He was 74 years old. The cause of death was a heart attack. His daughter Patricia, the same Patricia whose name had verified him to MacArthur 32 years earlier, was at his bedside. He is buried in Crown Hill Cemetery in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. At his retirement ceremony in 1950, the Colorado School of Mines had granted him an honorary Doctor of Engineering degree. The school still keeps his Distinguished Service Cross in a case on the second floor of Brown Hall. At the John F. Kay Special Warfare Center and School at Fort Bragg, the field training facility, where every new Green Beret learns guerrilla tactics, is named Camp Wendell Fertig, the colonel who promoted himself to general. The general the army demoted back to colonel. The colonel the army quietly asked, 6 years later, to teach it how to do everything he had done. He is the man MacArthur could never quite forgive, and the man Special Forces could never quite repay. If your father, your grandfather, your uncle, anyone in your family served in the Pacific Theater, in any branch on any ship, in any infantry division, in any guerrilla unit, in any Philippine scout regiment, leave their name and what they did in the comments below. Do not just leave the name. Tell us one thing about them. One thing they did, or one thing they said, or one thing you remember. The men who fought on Mindanao, in the Sulu Sea, in the jungles of Luzon, in the rice paddies of Leyte, the Filipino scouts and the Filipino guerrillas who fought alongside them, deserve more than a name in a database. They deserve to be remembered as people. Subscribe if you want the next story. There are more of them.